You're a psycho.
You're crazy.
Why can't you take a joke?
Do you realise how stupid you sound?
Why can't you be normal like my mates' wives?
I keep telling you, but you forget.
If you didn't do that, I wouldn't get so angry.
No one else will love you like I do.
Nobody else will want you. It's your fault you bruise easily.
You are not alone.
You're not alone.
You're not alone.
You're not alone.
You're not alone.
Hello everybody, welcome to my presentation. Thank you so much for watching. First off, I just want to say thank you so much for donating to this wonderful cause. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that you've joined this fundraiser. I really hope that you're having fun. I hope that you're just learning lots of stuff today. I hope you're having a great time because I know we all are. So thank you so much for choosing my presentation. So without further ado, let's get started on writing well. So, who am I, and why am I talking about writing well? Well, my name is Dagger. I am a self-published author. I'm currently working with top 100 Amazon best-selling author Frederick Chernoff on the Atlantic Island Mosaics trilogy. He has been a top 100 author multiple times now, so he's basically like top Amazon sci-fi person. We are, like I said, working on the Mosaics trilogy. Fractures and Stars and Fragments of Time, the first two books, are already out. They came out this year. You can go buy them on Amazon now. Falsehoods of Fate comes out later in the year, and that'll be the final to the trilogy. In addition to that, I have had a short story published in Stories for Around the Campfire anthology back in 2015 when I was a very tiny child. And I have two works, a clean young adult romance called My British Bear that has been received widely very well, and a high fantasy, historically accurate pirate story called Save of the Sea that was also released this year. I've been writing since the age of 6. I really got into my writing career at about 15. I was very inspired by Kellen Roth and Hope Ann, who are two indie writers as well. Kellen Roth actually helped me a lot with my journey. She is kind of my one true inspiration. And My British Bear was actually published first because of her. I've been writing since, like I said, about the age of 6. I made a little Christmas story back then. And it only gets up from there. I've attended multiple author fairs. I've done a couple talks. And in the past, I've been a part of Power of the Pen / Pen Ohio / Just Write, which is a writing tournament for high school students. I've made it to state, which is the top 1%, about 100 students every single year, and I've always placed very highly, so I kind of can write a little bit. Like, that's not sarcastic. I can write a little bit because I've gotten that much, and my books have gotten high enough reviews on Goodreads, above a 3.4, that allows me to actually qualify for different kinds of like book deals where like people will say, hey, we'll advertise your book because you have above this score, which means that it's good. So I'm a good person to listen to, I promise. So let's get started. What is writing well? Writing well is comprised of 3 main elements. It is writing with purpose, writing with emotion, and writing with passion. When you write with purpose, the intention is to teach the reader something that they've not learned before. For me, the purpose of Slave of the Sea was to represent, like, historically accurate how pirates work. Pirates of the Caribbean does a horrible historical accuracy, was kind of upset, absolutely love pirates. So I created that book with the purpose, the intention of displaying pirates how they really are, as a council, as people who trade stuff, and such. Writing with emotion is making the reader feel something they haven't felt before, or drudging up an old feeling that they've had and building on it. Something they haven't felt before is maybe, for me, My British Bear was an abused person falling in love with someone who was equally broken, but who wanted to fix them, who was healthy for them. So I wanted people who felt kind of the same way to be able to like self-assess and emotionally feel that healthy love, so they know what it was like. Or it's the purpose to dredge up an old feeling, so maybe you dredge up like a longing for something better or a hope, and you build upon it to give the reader that hope. And the last thing is writing with passion. It kind of, it's basically the steering wheel to this whole thing. It controls everything. It allows the reader to feel how much you care for the book, for the story you're telling, for the characters, and for the reader themselves. So how do we incorporate these elements into our writing? Since it's, they're kind of broad. It's not like show, don't tell. I'm just kind of basically being like, get good. Well, I'll teach you how to incorporate these things. To incorporate emotion, you have to basically learn a couple things about emotion. The first thing you have to learn is that if you don't care, your reader doesn't care either. For one of the first drafts of the book, one of the first novels I ever finished, I had planned since the beginning to kill 2 very important characters. And when I got to that point, I had already desensitized myself. I already didn't like the characters, so I killed them. And it wasn't powerful. And going back and reading it later, I'm like, wow, this person didn't even care about these characters. And I know you've read a book where something happens like that, and you're like, wow, this was the most unsad thing I've ever read. Really glad that I wasted my time. So you have to embrace every single emotion that you write. You have to really sit there and feel it. Basically, you're like a current. You're like a conductor. Like, this is the book, this is you, and this is the reader and the emotion. And you have to transfer it. You have to feel it first before you can put it in the book. I am not the first author to say this. Don't worry, I'm not crazy. I've attended many author conferences. Like I said, I've been a part of author fairs, but I've met Michael Grant of the Gone series and Animorphs, Cinda Chima Williams. She made the Warrior Heir, the Wizard Heir. Oh my gosh, so many books. I love Cinda. And then I also met Jack Gantos and Shelley Pearsall. Jack Gantos wrote Lost in Norway. I don't know how to say it. I think it's how you say it. And Shelley Pearsall wrote books like All Shook Up and All of the Above. All of them say that you have to feel what you're writing. And we all of us authors openly admit that we've cried writing books before. I cried. Most recently when I was writing that second book in the Mosaics trilogy, Fractures and Stars, they're building towards something. They're really trying to find something to basically cure the sick person, and it doesn't work. And both the characters in the book were so disappointed and upset, and I was so disappointed and upset that I did them dirty, that I actually started crying as I was writing it. And I've also cried killing a character, even though a minor character. She was a very nice person in another book. And a lot of people liked that emotion. They said they could feel it. So you really have to feel whatever emotion you're feeling. Which comes to my second point, which is you have to embrace the emotions. A lot of times I will write things that are slightly sensitive because, I want to, like I said, teach a lesson, make a point about something. And sometimes I'll sit there and I'll be like, this is horrible, this is disgusting, I hate this is terrible, it's so sad, and I'll almost stop and be like, I can't do it because I can't handle it. But I'm not the character. I have to embrace it because my character can handle it because she's so much stronger than I am, and they are so much more powerful than I am. You don't have to be afraid of putting in upsetting emotions. Things will upset you. That is life. I cannot tell you how much I can't stand, the cute little, bakery murder mysteries or romance novels where, everything's happy all the time. Because it really makes your characters feel cheap. It isn't what you want. And the last thing is, don't make unfeeling guys and girls because they're strong. Guys scream like babies. It is true. I have 5 brothers. They scream like little girls all the time. They also like flowers. Guys usually have a favorite flower. Girls do wear makeup, and girls love hugs, and girls brush their hair. Guys and girls both are very sensitive. They are very complex, and I really hate movies and books that sit there and are like, this is my strong, unfeeling character. Phew, I don't brush my hair. I'm not a girly girl. Like, yes, you brush your hair. You've got a friggin' mop. Like, you have to brush your hair. You're gonna drive yourself crazy. It's unrealistic. You have to make realistic characters for your readers to care about them. Again, I struggled with this. I have a novel named Shadow that I'm currently working on, and when I first started writing it, I made Ombre, the main character, I made her very brash, very angry, and eventually it got annoying reading back what I had written because I'm like, wow, you're a jerk. Leave us alone. So when you make guys and girls, they can be strong. They can be, the absolute most kick-butt people, but you have to make them feel emotions or they're not human. Purpose. So with purpose is comprised of like this little, as you can see, this little circle of things. The first thing that you have to realize is with your book, you have to have a main plot and subplots. I like to think of it as like a car. We already talked about how passion is the steering wheel of the car. Your main plot is the body of the car. It's great, it's pretty, beautiful, doesn't get anywhere without wheels. Your subplots are the wheels of the car. For example, I have a novel that I am currently working on. I have a lot of them. Just ignore me if I say currently working on, called Empty Vessel, where basically Jubra Roanoke, the leader of Cathaltar, is offered up as a vessel for the gods. Jubra Roanoke does not believe in the gods, even though his whole family does, and his whole country. And my main plot is to discover the downward spiral into insanity. Because, if he doesn't believe that there are gods, but his family does, can he be possessed by a god? Can he be a vessel? So, it explores, the ties between, or the lines between religion and blood and, the question of, is he possessed or is he really just insane and this is driving him crazy? And as I was writing this novel with this idea, I realized that it was going very quickly. I wanted it to be slow. I wanted it to be kind of startling. When you get to the top of a roller coaster and your stomach settles and you're like, oh no, something is bad. I wanted the book to feel like that. And like I said, as I was writing it, I was like, we're getting to all the points too quickly. This is very open in the air. And I realized that was because this downward spiral into insanity was my car. So I needed to add wheels. The wheels were, his relationship with this desert enchantress named Cheerlura, the hate for his uncle who's trying to take over the kingdom, the war with Ronarthian, which is the country right next to them, and his sick mother who no one cares about except him. And these are the things that move it along. As he reacts to his uncle and Cheerlura and the maid in the castle and his mother and the war on Ronarthian, it starts to exhibit my main plot. You have to have subplots that drive it along, or it's going to feel a little bit cheap or a little bit like you're really, really trying to pound your point. And you're not trying to pound your point. You just want to make the point in general. But sometimes it can come across that way. Other parts of purpose is your characters have to be explicit about what they're doing. I know a lot of movies and a lot of TV shows and a lot of books are like, I would like this thing for unexplained reasons. Because we want a mystery. We want you to be intrigued. But it doesn't really go over very well. One show that did this well was Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks came out right at the very beginning, right as you're starting it, and said, we are figuring out why Laura Palmer died. And that was it. We're figuring out why Laura Palmer died. And you can sit there and you can go, yes, I'm going to cheer on Sheriff Harry Truman and Agent Cooper because we know what they're doing. They're trying to figure out why this teenage girl died. And you have to keep up with that because otherwise we don't know what we're rooting for. A good example of how books kind of contrasted is The Hunger Games. The first book in the Hunger Games series, obviously the Hunger Games, was very good. We know Katniss Everdeen is fighting because she's going to protect her sister Primrose. That is the whole point of the book. She is fighting because she's not going to die, because she's going to protect her sister. We can really, vote for her and cheer her on because, like, that is a good reason to exist. The second book, Catching Fire, as much as I love it, didn't really have, like, a thing where they sat there and went, this is what I want. She's just going with the flow. Things are just kind of happening around her. And sometimes it makes it feel a little cheap, because, like, if you think back and you're like, man, the main plot of Catching Fire was, I don't know what they were doing. They, like, fought at some point and there was, like, a stopwatch. Literally all I can remember is the stopwatch with the little Mockingjay in it. And that's why it's important to state why your character wants what they want at the very beginning. Now, it doesn't have to be babyish. Like, okay, let's say that your character is a football star, he's got a really sucky, abusive family, but, if he goes to college, he'll get money and he'll be able to get his family a better life. You don't have to explain that at the beginning. You can say, I need to win this football game because I need to go to college. And that's enough. As a reader, if you care about this character, or if you want to care about this character, and you know that they are a football player who needs to win a scholarship because they need to go to college, you're already rooting for them. You're going, okay, great. That's a pure reason. That's a good reason that we want something. And it doesn't always have to be something super specific. You can just say, my character wants freedom, wants hope, wants to achieve this thing. In the aforementioned Slave of the Sea, Leavening wants freedom. That is why they're going to Avondella. Captain Guy, we don't know what he wants, but he also wants to get to Avondella. But that's fine, because we know Leavening has to get to Avondella to get her freedom. And we want her to be free. She's been a maid all of her life. She's been abused. It's time for Leavening to be who she wanted to be. And that really helps people be interested in your story. When I first wrote Slave of the Sea, actually, I had a problem with that. A lot of people were like, hey, this is a great book. You wrote it really well. Love the characters. Why the heck do I care? Why am I reading this? What are we here for? That's where you have to sit down and you have to go, you're here because Leavening wants her freedom. The second thing to purpose is you don't have to force themes. Even though you have to explicitly state what your character wants and why, don't force a theme. Your theme is going to come out through your novel. I don't start novels with a theme in mind. I write them and the theme happens. So you just have to let it happen. If at any point in time you sit down and you go to write, this is my theme. Friends have to stick together. Blah, 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 blah. Then you didn't write it well enough. That's not the theme that's coming across. There's a different theme that's there, that's coming across, that you have to learn what that is. And you have to embrace it instead of trying to force a theme that isn't there to be there. Don't be graphic to be graphic. That is not a purpose. I cannot stress this enough, that if you're literally going, man, I want a book to have the most steamy sex that anyone's ever seen, or I want a book that is just so disgusting, so Saw-like, so horrifying that people vomit when they read it, that is not a reason. That is you wanting a shock factor. But it's not a good reason. Writing is an art. Writing is something beautiful. You want to write because you want to give people something. Eliciting a negative response, such as disgust, really isn't giving anyone anything. And it's not really a purpose. It's more kind of like a sick, twisted idea. Like, Stephen King writes horror novels, but, his point is to teach about characters or to show that, you can be better than something. And that is kind of what you want. You can have explicit stuff. You can have violent stuff, but there has to be a reason for it. It can't just be violent to be violent. The final thing is, with purpose, please stop making your characters fall in love if they're not meant to be in love. Middle grade fiction does this really badly, where where there's one girl, 3 guys, the main character falls in love with the girl likes the main character, the last book of the series they kiss. That's fine. If it's minimal, it's okay. But a lot of the time with these middle grade stories, the characters will get really possessive of each other. They won't work well together anymore. You know, the guy gets jealous. And if that doesn't bring your story along, don't write it. You don't have to put characters together, no matter how much people want you to. A lot of problems that people had with the Harry Potter series is that they put characters together at the end that didn't belong together because the fans wanted them. You don't have to do that. If your characters do not work as a power couple, do not put them together. When I first started writing one of my series, I won't say which because then it might spoil stuff. The characters were not going to be together. It was not going to be a romance. It was just not going to happen. And then I realized that these two characters cared so much about each other and worked so well together that even as a couple, as a romance, they were going to kick butt. They were going to work better together than they were apart. And that's okay. You can have characters that get together if they work better. But if all it does is create like tension and kind of like a love triangle, then don't do it because it just feels cheap. So we talked about how to incorporate it. We kind of talked about the elements. How do you improve your writing overall? Everybody has their ideas, you know. You can do Facebook groups and you can see everybody who writes all these articles about, you know, this is how you write, show, don't tell, plan it all out. You'll have authors sit there and tell you, you gotta do these exact things, you gotta bullet point everything, name your characters, write out these character filling sheets, build your world. And everybody tries to tell you to write in the way that they write. And I realize it doesn't work for everybody. So here are 3 things that kind of overall have helped me write. I know it's kind of like generalized, but it really helps people. The first thing I tell people is write often. Please write often. You don't have to write a lot. It doesn't have to be significant. It doesn't have to be important. It doesn't even have to be part of what you're writing currently. Just write it anyways. So sometimes I'll be at work and I'll be struck with a random sentence that I like. Scribble it down. Keep it. Don't keep it. Write it in your phone notes. It doesn't matter. As you can see behind me, I'll get out of the way. I have tons of stuff. That right there is a list of all the books I'm working on. This is a family tree and connection thing, and those are more family trees. All over the place. I've got stuff on sticky notes, on the back of work papers. I'm always scribbling stuff down. And that is because when you always scribble stuff down, you get accustomed to your writing style, and you find it very easy to slip back into continuing to write. When I was in middle school, I would start a novel, I'd get like 10, 20 pages in, and then I'd get busy. And I'd forget about it for 2 months. And I'd go back to write it, and everything was foreign to me. I didn't know what my ideas were. I didn't know who my characters were. I didn't know anything. So what I started doing was I just wrote down anything that came to mind. Anything that came to my head, I wrote it down. And what eventually happened, like I said, is I grew comfortable with my own voice, and I was able to just slip back into it. I was able to sit down at a computer and write. One thing that's really helped me is I keep track on Nano, because NaNoWriMo, you can keep track of your word count. 250 words a day. Sometimes only 115, sometimes 10. 1 sentence a day. Of this book I'm working on called Secret of the Monarch, I just sit down, I write a little bit, and I move on. And what eventually happens is I want to write the book more, because I'm only allowing myself a little bit. So I go full send, and we write the book, one day that I'm free. The second thing I have as advice is to read often. It doesn't just have to be with your eyes. You can listen to audiobooks too. I love listening to audiobooks. Oh my gosh, I work so much that audiobooks are a lifesaver. But reading is important. A lot of people don't have time for reading, and I understand, which is why I say audiobooks. The Libby app is fantastic. Reading really helps you improve. Like any good job, you have to go and you have to mentor. You have to sit there and watch somebody else do it, and you learn the ropes. And writing's kind of the same way. When you read books, you pick up on what you like, what you don't like, what you wish would have been done different, and you kind of learn for your own novels how to do things. One specific sentence or example that I always remember is I was very young and I was reading The 39 Clues, book 1, by Rick Riordan. and it talks about how an idea crystallized in one of the characters' minds. And that sentence was so profound that I thought about it for months. I was like, that's the most perfect way to say anything like that. So it really, really, really impacted me, and it's only because I read. And so now every time I don't have words for how a thought like forms in someone's head, I say it crystallizes, or it was like a crystalline structure with many faces, many ideas to the thought, but they couldn't see clearly what they were thinking. Another example is when I was younger, I used to read American Girl a lot, and they always compared the sky to silk. It was always a silky sky, and I loved that, and it gave a very clear, perfect picture. So I also use terms like that. There's nothing wrong with using what you learn in a book. There's nothing wrong with taking inspiration. It's actually good. That's how you improve. So when you read books, even if you hate a book, you can sit down and you can learn, I like what they did here. I like the way he portrayed this sentence. I like the way he portrayed this character. And you can take note and you can go, I want to portray a character the same way. Or you can go the opposite route and go, wow, this sucks. Really glad I'll never do this. Make sure I don't do this. I can't tell you how many times I've realized something sucks and have had to edit it out of my books because I realize that it's dragging it down. One example is I learned the importance of historical accuracy and just name accuracy from Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. This was actually a pet peeve of mine for a hot minute. He calls peregrine falcons peregrine hawks, and they're not. Even if you Google peregrine hawk, nothing pops up because there's no such thing. I've been in love with peregrine falcons since I was very tiny, so it really upset me, and I was like, okay, maybe there's a peregrine hawk. So I looked it up again. Google has nothing. They are called duck hawks, but only in the Midwest, only in Ohio. So the Polish grandfather in the story, or the literal kid from Florida, would not know to call this a duck hawk, and it's a peregrine falcon. And that's really what taught me just basically how important it is that you have what you're saying right. So the other day I tried to write a story, and it's it's a high fantasy, Secret of the Monarch, like I said, and she puts on a dress, and it's gingham. And I did a ton of research to make sure that gingham actually existed in this time period that I was kind of basing it off of. And it does. It does exist in this time period. It is actually way older than we think. It originated in African tribes. I won't go on my gingham rant. I have a blog post about that. But it was just very interesting and really made my story feel better because I researched. So, like I said, you just gotta read a lot. And it's your own version of research. You gotta take what you like, what you don't like, you gotta write it down, and you gotta make sure you incorporate it in your own books. The third piece of advice is to write raw. A lot of people struggle with writing because they want it to be perfect the first time. When I was younger, I used to do this. I would sit down and I would go, this is gonna be perfect this time. It's not. It's not gonna be perfect for another 4 or 5 drafts, and that's okay. It's alright. You have to get all the emotion and everything out the first time, and then the second time you have to edit it. It's like if you cut up a bunch of pictures of a magazine because you want to make a collage. You have all your pictures and you have all your ideas, and you have all the emotion into cutting out these magazines. And then you have a mess of papers and magazines and glue and poster board everywhere. And the next step is to pick it all up and stick it together and throw away what doesn't belong. And that's how editing works. In fact, one way that I edit is I open up one document that has the old draft in it, and I open up a second document that has the blank doc. It's just a blank document, and I retype every single sentence. And if it doesn't feel right in my brain as I write it, I edit it. And it really helps when I'm adding scenes and editing stuff, and it just really makes everything very clear. It really helps me. You don't have to edit like that at all. I don't think anybody else on the planet edits like that. But it just helps me. So you gotta write well, you gotta write raw, you just gotta pour it all out the first time, and then just figure out how to edit later. And that'll help you improve your writing exponentially. The last thing I want to tell you is you have to write for enjoyment. Not every single person is going to read every single thing that you've ever written. That's okay. It's perfect, actually. I've had to learn this. When I was younger, I used to have literal panic attacks if I wrote down a piece of paper and it got lost because somebody had to see it. It couldn't just stay in my brain. It couldn't get lost. I honestly would not write fan fiction because I was like, well, if you're not making money off of it, there's no purpose. No one's reading it. And eventually I had to learn to let that go. Not everybody's going to read everything that you write, and that's okay. You just have to sometimes write because you want to write. Not all of your writing is going to be good, and that's why it's good that no one's reading it. Not all of my reading is good, or writing is good. Not all of Rick Riordan's, not all of James Patterson's, or Stephen King's. We write things that absolutely suck. We laugh at ourselves and then throw it away. I've had boxes and filing cabinets full of paper that I've kept over the years, full of writing stuff. And there were some things that I read that I legitimately laughed at myself for because it was so bad, and was so glad that I was the only person who was ever going to see it. So if you write something and it's bad, don't feel bad. It's normal. If you write because you have to, I want to write a little warning here. If you write only because you have to, it's going to show through your writing and the reader's not going to enjoy it. When you write something you're forced to write, you come through a little bit cynical or a little bit bland. And there are many books that I've read that I've sat down and I've gone, wow, this person wrote this because they have to. They don't care about the story at all. They don't care about any of these characters. They don't care about the reader reading it. They're just writing it because they're making money. And you kind of lose respect for people. So unless you're literally contractually obligated to write something, do not write it unless you want to, or unless you're trying to finish something that you at one point wanted to, because it's really going to show when it really is going to suck. So just continue what you started doing at the very start. Just write because you want to, unless it's literally your job to break outside that mold. Even if it is your job, don't write it if you don't want to. Just write because you want to, because then the reader will feel like you care, and that's extremely important. Last thing I want to leave you with is writing sucks. It's a fact of life. Writing absolutely sucks sometimes, and that's what's beautiful about it. It is an art. It is messy, and then in the end, it's pretty, and everybody likes it. So you just have to accept the fact that sometimes you're gonna sit there and cry because you have a blank screen, and none of the words will come. But that's the beauty of it. So thank you so much for watching this presentation. I really hope that you learned something. If you didn't, I didn't do my job, send me an angry message. I don't know. If you would like a PDF copy of Slate of the Sea, this link that's here on the screen, you can use to obtain it. Like I said, it's a PDF copy. It's what I have published. The website is Dawn Elizabeth Dagg, DAGGE.wixsite.com/home/fundraiser. You can download both the PDF as well as the PowerPoint presentation that I've shown you here today. It'll be in PDF format, so you can download it and look back at it at another time. Thank you so much for donating again. This is a fantastic cause. Thank you so much for watching my video. Make sure you watch other people's videos, and just have fun with this, because this is a fantastic thing that's been put together, and I really think you'll enjoy it. If you want to know more about me, Dawn Dagger, I will have a link at the very end of this video, and it'll basically be a link to all of my social medias. I have a lot of things that I do, so it'd be really hard to mention them all. So if you just type that in, it'll kind of show you everything I do. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you again so much for coming to my presentation. Thank you so much for watching. I hope if you get Slave of the Sea, you enjoy it. You can review it if you'd like. Thank you so much for donating, and just have a wonderful day. Keep writing and keep being awesome.